Yes.
All right, so at least we've got Poppy and Laura and myself. My camera's here, so I've got to kind of reset a number of these windows. I do still have to get also all these other questions. And then we've got a couple people who actually do want to hop on stage. So I'm going to let a few of those people on. We're limited by who can get on stage. So I'll start with, I think I've got Janet here, and then we'll try to get through people, and then I'm also want to go back to some of the questions that we had in the main area. So Janet, are you with us? No. Okay. I'm going to try to get Ellen on with us then. No. Okay, we'll get you. Oh yeah, we've got Ellen who just joined us.
Doing great work, and really, I don't have a question. I just want to say congratulations. I'm so pleased with everything you've been able to do, and I've got a student right now who's been tagging penguins in Antarctica in the Ross Sea, and we're looking at how they use the ice that's changing over climate change. So I want him to meet you someday.
Good. Well, hopefully we can make that happen. We'll move through some of the questions. I'm going to say goodbye, Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen.
And encourage your students. Poppy, a question. Can you trace the entanglements to specific fisheries to hold these fisheries accountable? I think this is one of the big challenges. Is there anything you can do about accountability to specific fisheries?
Yeah, well, it depends. It's a big question because it depends on the kind of fisheries, it depends on the country and the control and the enforcement of the laws that they have. There's been a great many attempts to change the gears, the design of some gears, to reduce the entanglement of some birds. But the problem is that sometimes there are observers, programs with people on board, try to observe and oversee, but it's not, they don't work in all the countries. It depends on the country. So it has been kind of difficult even to assess the magnitude of entanglement. You know, in many countries like ours, all the systems and the gears, they change all the time. So it's difficult to keep up with that. But there are some attempts, and there's something interesting that they've been trying to do is to study the DNA, because sometimes, like, you have a lot of birds, seabirds, that die in entangled, but you don't know where they come from. Maybe they could be one species, but they come from different areas. So one idea is to do the DNA and track to what colony or what population they belong to.
Great, thank you. I'm going to try to alternate between people who want to join us on screen, a bunch of questions that appeared in the chat before, questions that are appearing in the chat now. I'm actually going to let Deb and Skip, they're next on my screen, enter, and they can ask their question directly. Hopefully, Deb and Skip, you should be coming on soon. Or maybe not. So we'll just address their question. I think the question from Deb and Skip, and hopefully you guys are still listening, is what is your next most pressing challenge for, I guess, for penguins overall, but maybe you could also answer it for Global Penguin Society itself as an organization.
Yeah. So one of the things, you know, working with penguins is demanding, because we work demanding in terms of resources, because everything is kind of expensive. We work in very remote areas. We navigate a lot. We need boats and you know, special teams. We work in field work in New Zealand. We support work in Antarctica, well, here in Patagonia, Chile, and also the technology is very expensive. So just to track one penguin, it costs us a lot of money, even if we recycle those devices all the time. But one of the big challenges that we see now with the pandemic is that we want to conquer new circles. We want to change the conservation culture in people, because we need to reach people that they've never heard about conservation, or they just don't care as much as we do. So we are thinking now about implementing a new project linking art with oceans and penguins. So we reach people that belongs to business, you know, to enterprises in Europe, in New York, people that people that are not looking for conservation. We want to put conservation in their way. So, and that is kind of one of the challenges, and we're going to be designing a program that we will need support to implement.
Great, thank you. I've tried to just let Claudia on stage, but I'm not sure why. I think a lot of people that I'm trying to get on stage somehow are not getting on. So I'm not sure if Claudia wants to put her question in the chat. I'll go to another question and just kind of taking it a bit differently. How did you both get started? And maybe you could also speak briefly on behalf of Lujan, who's also somehow not able to join us on stage yet. But how did you get started in this field?
How we started.
Oh, well, Poppy and I meet in the 90s working on the field. I worked with sea lions mainly, and Poppy worked censusing seabirds in the same area in northern Patagonia, northern and central Patagonia. And well, we married, and after that we work intensely on science several years. We made our PhDs, but we feel that we need to make another contribution to conservation, working more actively with the communities, with the people, with education. And so we start to move on that direction, making management plans for protected areas, for example. And Poppy can talk about how GPS was born. No, it's his idea.
Go ahead, Poppy.
Yeah.
So we realized that science is necessary, but it's not sufficient to make changes in the real world. So the idea came in Tasmania after a scientific penguin congress, because it was a scientific whining, you know, about the situation of penguins. So we thought we could use that science to engage researchers and also make that science available for communities, for governments. And that's how GPS started. And we work in, as we said, in science, because we only do science that is useful to guide conservation, implement conservation, and we really like to create protected areas, because that is something that is going to stay after we die. So it's going to be permanent and long-term protection.
And protected areas contribute to the economy, to the local economy also, through the tourism and or artisanal fisheries in the area.
Right. And the education component was growing and growing. We started local, and now with great partners like WCN linking us to Disney and National Geographic, and so we are spreading the word globally.
I want to ask you actually, Poppy and Laura, how has the pandemic impacted the work of GPS, especially with regards to your education program? I mean, so many schools are impacted by this, but also with regards to ecotourism.
Yeah. So the things here is that right now in Argentina, we are reaching the peak right now. I mean, it's the worst moment. Even though we've been in quarantine since March, the quarantine will continue. We're still in lockdown. So we cancel all the, of course, in-person activities. There are no classes, but we quickly shift into virtual, like we are doing with you are doing with the Expo. So we are offering talks and courses and interaction with kids from all over. All the material, we move it into digital, as Lujan explained in the video. And next year, we're going to offer also courses for teachers online. And all the material is going to be digital. And one of the things that we are going to do now, GJ, is that we have this satellite antenna that from National Geographic. So we are going to go to the penguin colonies. With satellite antenna allows us to give like 1 hour talks from very remote places to all the globe, to all the planet. We reach more or less 5,000 kids or and grown-ups per hour. So that's a good thing because we don't have access. Tourists cannot come. We don't have flights. For 8 months, we haven't had a flight.
Thank you. I actually invited some folks on stage. First of all, we've been joined by Lujan. Finally, this is great. Been trying to get some folks on stage, but it hasn't worked for everyone. But it worked for Violet. So Violet, I could see you were a little surprised when you showed up.
Yeah.
Hi, Violet.
So I'm
This
glad you
is
go ahead, ask us a question, make a comment. It's wonderful to see young people getting involved. Thank you.
So like what inspired you to help save the penguins, and like how long have you been like worried about the penguins like going extinct?
Cool. Thanks for your question, Violet. I'm gonna take you off stage, and then I'll let Poppy and Lujan and Laura answer.
All our entire life, I think we love the animals, and we love nature since we were very young, both of us. And in my case, I always knew that I wanted to dedicate my life to nature, and I'm here.
In my case, I didn't know. I wanted to be an ambassador, but then, my grandmother used to tell me nice stories about penguins when I was small, and then I was shocked when I saw a lot of penguins dying from oil spills, and that clicked my desire to protect. I mean, I kind of heard I didn't hear a voice, but it was like a message saying, I have to dedicate my life for conservation. I cannot explain.
You're
It's
still
a
an ambassador
strong
for penguins now.
feeling.
Sorry?
You're an ambassador for penguins now.
Yeah, there you go.
How about you, Lujan?
And I love the oceans, and I think we need a healthy ocean for a healthy planet. And penguins are a very special birds because they show us how it's happening in the oceans. They show us the problems and what we can do to save them. So it's very important to me, and I learn a lot about penguins. Yes.
I'm going to take two questions from the chat here, and they're somewhat related, and then I'm going to try to bring Nora Bromwich on stage. We'll see if that works. But the two questions are you, they're moving as I'm trying to read them. Are you interacting with other conservation groups to help penguins, and what complementary actions are you taking? And I think a related question to that is, el gobierno de Argentina ayuda realmente a su trabajo. So is the government of Argentina really helping your work? If you could answer kind of both questions together, that'd be great.
Yes. We work, the concept of GPS is a network. It's a global network. So we work with a lot of conservationists, with a lot of organizations from all over, and also researchers. So because, as like GJ and Charlie said at the beginning, is we are working together. We have to go together. So it's key. It's key, particularly because we work in very remote areas, like New Zealand. We have partners there, also in Africa. And the question about the government in Argentina, I'm going to answer that in Spanish. No, I'm kidding. So it depends. I mean, there are many different kinds of governments and decision. Even within a government, you have a lot of decision makers. We've been the same and saying the same things for 30 years. Some of them pay attention, some others don't. But that is why what Laura was saying, the work with the community gives us stability, because the communities don't change. Their stakeholders are always the same. So we've been growing a relationship, and we've been educating the communities that are supporting our work. So that's basically the answer for the government of Argentina support.
Thank you.
So you Spanish a little, because the question is in Spanish. No.
Well,
we'll leave it in English for now. And I'm really glad we just got joined by Nora. I'm so glad to see so many young people joining us. My young kid, I think, is still waking up, and the other's gone to the zoo, actually. So Nora, go ahead and ask a question or make a comment. Thank you so much for caring at such a young age and for joining us today.
Thank you. What inspired you guys to join the Global Penguin Society?
Lujan, do you want
Yeah. Hello, Nora. Well, Global Penguin Society works in different activities, science, and one of the activities that it's very important is education. I love the education and inspire me to connect people with penguins and with the oceans. It's, I think it's very important to connect all together. And some important is make people understand what can we do to help penguins and protect them. This is what I love it. It's my shop.
Thanks, Lujan. We'll take a question in a bit of a different direction. One specific question that I see here, and remember, folks, if we don't get through all the questions, you can go and catch up with Poppy Moore at his booth later. You could chat there, but also you can get in touch directly. The whole spirit behind WCN is to put you directly in touch with a conservationist. So feel free to continue this beyond Expo. So, Poppy, I don't know who on your team is best fit to answer this question, but what's being done for the Galapagos Island penguins?
Sorry again, what is being
done for the penguins on the Galapagos Island?
Great. So, as you know, the Galapagos is the tropical penguin. It's the penguin that lives closer to the northern hemisphere. The population is very small, as we mentioned at the beginning, lower than 2,000 pairs, and they are affected by climate change because of the El Nino. El Nino is an effect in the ocean, and basically what it does, it reduces the availability of food for them. So sometimes the penguins decide not to breed directly because there's not enough food to cope with raising chicks. So in the Galapagos, we've been supporting work to provide artificial nests. This work was done by a colleague that belongs to GPS, and to provide artificial nests. And also we've been involved in part of the management plan, in the implementation, because one of the problems is that there was a rule that wanted to limit the the migration of people from the mainland to the island, but it didn't work. Right now, one of the problems, maybe people saw that on the news, is the fisheries. I mean, they discovered these, Chinese fleets fishing there. So there's an important need to improve the implementation of those regulations. Sometimes in developing countries, you got great laws, but no implementation. So this might be one of the cases there.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a related question asked by Christian, and then I'm going to try to bring Fran King. So Fran, if you're listening, you ready? I'm going to put you on stage. But Poppy, is it possible to protect the coastal penguins in an area without protecting the marine sublittoral area as well? And so how do you deal with those interrelated issues? I'll let you answer that question, and at the same time, I'll bring Fran on stage for her to ask a question afterwards.
Excellent, excellent. And one little comment about the Galapagos. We made a booklet that we can share digitally about the Galapagos penguin, to increase the connection of communities and governments with their species of penguin. Mm-hmm. And coming back to your question, TJ, you know that at least here in Patagonia and in many places, you know that there are almost 300 places on the planet where you can visit penguins. And in many of those places, they created the protected areas only where the people were watching the wildlife. Because like 50 years ago, they thought that they were animals that were living there. So if you protect the nest, that's fine. Until science came on board, showing that these guys swim thousands of kilometers. And then we had the kind of appearance of this new trend, creating marine protected areas. So the thing is, like, it's okay to protect, you have to protect both. But in terms of penguins, the challenge is you need to protect a small local place where penguins nest, and they have the eggs and the chicks. But at the same time, you have to protect a big scale. So you have to work on small scale and very big scales in the ocean. Different jurisdictions, different governments, sometimes different nationalities. That is why it's kind of challenging to work on penguin conservation.
Great. I've been trying to let people on stage, but somehow they're not appearing. But I'm going to ask a question from Andrea, who wants to know, how can we help your project? Is there a remote voluntary for those who can't travel but want to contribute? So what can people do? And I would encourage you to answer that question also in writ large, because I know there's many ways that people can contribute besides just doing something for the project.
Great. Yeah, so there are so many. ¿Quieres contar? You want to tell the story?
So many people help us with, for example, making the locution,
the voice, the speaking
the
voice.
voices for the videos, for example, for our educational videos or our promotional videos, for example. And another people can help, for example, with the design of the educational materials, for example. Yes.
Sometimes we have like volunteers coming. It's difficult depending on the country with the laws for foreigners. Sometimes people come and help us census the penguin colonies. Like the video, what Laura was mentioning, the video that you've just seen here was the voice was recorded by the daughter of Marty Bermuda. We met him at the WCN Expo, and also design. There are many other ways, but and of course support in terms of funds is very important, because what we explained before, right? That it's kind of expensive to work on penguins because it's all about remote areas in the ocean mainly most of the time.
Great, thank you so much for that answer. And actually, I'm going to ask Lujan a little bit. I don't know that you were on stage when we talked about this, but how are you able to port some of the educational activities with COVID-19 and some of the restrictions? What's the experience been like for you and your team?
Sorry, Poppy, can you repeat, please?
¿Qué diferencias hubo debido al coronavirus en el trabajo de educación, por ejemplo? Con
Great question. Yes, we always give face-to-face talks at the school, but this year we started to give online talks, and it is a great experience because we can reach kids that live so far away from the penguin colonies, and they interact in the virtual teaching as a face-to-face teaching. They are enthusiastic. They ask for learn to more about penguins, and I think that in the future we are going to combine these two kind of activities: learn face-to-face talking and also online virtual talks. Yes.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna keep on trying to bring some folks on stage, and we'll see if they can appear. I know some people are also having trouble. We're trying to troubleshoot all of this, but I'll ask another question. This one comes from Selena, who wants to know, what is the process needed to help the penguins in the illegal trade, such as the bar situation? What happens to those penguins afterwards? I think a lot of people are concerned, of course, about not just the welfare, but also the longer term conservation implications.
Yeah, so we were trying to, this was brand new because it came out, it was a kind of surprise because we started to receive like messages about strange situations in which penguins were being taken out of colonies, or we've flown to the Arabian Emirates, and we saw that there are places that they cannot explain the origin of penguins. In Russia, there are private collections of penguins, and there are seizures of penguins in houses. I mean, it's kind of very unexpected. The thing is that we are trying to assess the nature of the problem. What are the species that are at risk? But the things that we are having all kinds of sources, like boats that are fishing offshore and capturing penguins and dolphins illegally and then going to Asia, sometimes stealing penguins with helicopters, sometimes offering, like here in South America, offering $200 per live penguin, and then they come with zodiacs. So one of the things is try to see the legal situation, and also to assess the law CITES. The penguins, the trade of animals is listed in CITES. And also, once we discover these penguins, we have to assess and work with other organizations to see in what condition they are, if they can be released back in the wild, or that is risky for the wild population. But it's a big, big thing. And when we showed the penguin bar because we thought it was an extreme situation, endangered African penguins in a bar where people go to drink beers at night. So yeah, there's many big differences. And we just discovered one place in China that has over 400 emperor penguins in captivity. It's the largest population of emperors outside of Antarctica in captivity.
I'm gonna probably start to wrap up. I'll try to get through one or two more questions, and then afterwards I want to make sure people have the opportunity to go back to the stages where Mar Alliance will be talking about sharks and rays, and the Wassa Lions will be talking about lions in Kenya. But maybe we'll see if we can get one or two more. I'll read them from what they came through on the main stage. Are most of the penguin colony sites that you work in inhabited or uninhabited? Are there people there or not?
So it depends. It depends. Yeah. It depends on the place. Like most people have maybe they visited Boulders Beach in Africa, in South Africa, where you have the city and the penguins living there. I mean, they are coexisting. In Sydney area, in the Bay Area, you have the small blue penguins nesting on the coast, on private properties. Most of the penguin colonies are kind of far away from cities, in general, because think about the distribution of the penguins, Antarctica, subantarctic islands, or Patagonia is kind of uninhabited, Chile, but it depends. One of the things is coastal development. It can be a concern for penguins, not only in terms of people living, but also developing of mining operations, mining harbors. One of the things we are concerned about is deep sea mining. That is a big concern for the future. And as Lujan explained, plastic pollution is a big concern, and it is caused by cities, mostly in some areas. So yeah, even though cities are not that close, the penguins are affected by the plastics that are discarded by those cities.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up here. It's been great to see everyone. Great to see the three of you. Thank you so much for doing all the work you're doing for penguins. All the GPS team and all their work can be found in their exhibitors booth. You can connect with them through WCN. But for now, I invite you to go back to the two main stages and catch the rest of our presentations and enjoy the day. Thank you so much. See you all soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie y Skip querían entrar y no podían.